James, thank you so much for jumping on the AIM podcast.
I appreciate you, Doug. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Let's go, bro. I'm super pumped about this, man. My first question for you is how are the hands doing?
Good. They were beat up right after. They weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. The worst part about it was probably just like the joint pain, like my wrists and stuff are really swollen, but my hands are doing well. I mean, we're about a month and a half out, so they're calloused up. They're doing pretty good.
What about like right after the couple days after the challenge? Was it pretty bad?
Yeah, I mean, it was all open wounds on my hands, so like showering sucked. But the worst part was like my wrists were swollen. Like I couldn't even like I couldn't even open doors. I couldn't hold tight enough to open a doorknob. I couldn't stand for like 3 days. My quads were shot. My legs were beat. Um, and then I obviously just had I had a headache for like 3 days from like trying to look up to see where I was going. So like my neck was fried. I like popped a couple blood vessels in my eyes, like trying to just crawl for as long as I could. So the body was beat up, but it was way more mental. I was like just completely done mentally.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine, dude. That's an incredible accomplishment. Obviously, I think most people have know what you've done at this point, but for anyone that's listening that hasn't yet, what we're going to talk about today is a lot of the fact of what you just did. You broke two world records, and I'll kind of let you explain just generally what you did, and then obviously we can dive into a little bit more specifically. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible the two records you were able to break.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's what's even crazier for me is I don't think most people understand it because it's like I only started posting on social media about a year ago. So like, and I only started posting when I kind of had my life together. But like when I decided to do the bear crawl, I kind of didn't have my life together. So to see it from, you know, idea to completion was really, really cool. That was the coolest part.
100%. And that's I think a good place to start is just kind of like why you did it. Like I think you talk about, and I've listened to some other podcasts you've been on, which has been really cool to see how you've been able to use this challenge to explore different platforms and share your story and hopefully make a big impact in that way. But why did you even choose to do it? Maybe when you were going through a tougher time in life where things weren't going your way, why did you make the decision to do something extremely hard and put yourself through all this pain and suffering to get to the other side of it?
Yeah. I played baseball in college and baseball was like my whole life growing up. And I kind of fell down a rabbit hole of like drinking and partying in college where I was just trying to fit in and really didn't know what I wanted out of life. And I did that for like 4.5 years. And it just got to a point where I was just so sick of looking in the mirror and just being like, you have nothing to show for this, right? And like my last season of baseball got canceled because of COVID-19. So my whole career, like my whole life got stripped away from me just like instantly. And it was the worst feeling in the world. I was in a bad relationship. I didn't have the athlete badge anymore. Like I had nothing to my name. I was literally just like, I can't believe this is me. Like if somebody was to ask me like, oh, yo, like, what do you do? I literally couldn't even, it would have been a joke, you know? Um, so it didn't really start out as the bear crawl. It just started out as like, how can I just like try and put the pieces together and get my life together? And I just like, I found fitness, right? I found working out. And it sounds funny because like I was a baseball player growing up and like I was an athlete. So I was always working out, but like I found the intention of fitness. Like I found working out for a purpose. Um, and then obviously through that, I was able to go back and kind of do my grad year and play baseball there. And I was kind of sitting in the driver's seat there of just like, all right, like I know my career is going to come to an end again. Like I know what's going to happen in 3 months. Like I know, my parents are going to, what job are you going to get? Right. Like all this stuff that society puts on you. I was like, I have to beat people to the punch. And like, if there's one chance at this life of doing what I want to do, like I have to get ahead of the ball. And I remembered like Devin doing the bear crawl and I kind of watched him during COVID, like train for it and stuff. And I was like, fuck it. Like, let me see if that guy even did it. Like what was going on? Cause I like lost touch with it. I didn't even know if he did it. Um, and I fell in love with it. I was like, this is fucking amazing. And I heard a podcast of him he said, somebody's going to break my record. Like somebody's going to do it. And I was like, that's me. And that was it. I just told everybody about it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then when I came home, it was just like, all right, let's just start training. And nobody could really kind of take me away out of that realm. And then it just snowballed.
That's amazing, man. When you made this decision to do it, was this something that you talked a lot about with family and friends before you like finally committed, or was this something you personally said, look, I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I'm going to do this. And then whoever wants to support and be around me can do it. But it's like something I personally need to do.
Yeah, it was kind of, I didn't really care what anybody thought. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I did care what people think, but I was going to do it regardless. I was kind of at a weird point in my life where I had all of my friends in college that were partying, doing all this stuff. And then like once I left that scene, support was kind of limited. So I kind of had like a whole year under my belt of just like, all right, I kind of expected nobody to support me and I expected nobody to believe me, especially since I was somebody who was just like living the lifestyle that they were living a couple months ago, you know? So I was like, they have no reason to believe me, right? They have no reason to believe that I'm going to go out and do something extraordinary. So I kind of expected it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to commit to this. And like worst case scenario, a year from now comes and I go back to doing what I was doing. Like I fail, nothing comes of it. And like, I could just go right back with them doing the same stuff. So support was limited and like it was limited throughout the whole process. Nobody really believed I was going to do it until I actually did it.
Sure.
Which was cool to see people admit it to me, you know, and kind of have that pride for myself of just like I knew everybody doubted me and like nobody really supported me, said anything. And then like after they were like, yeah, man, I wasn't sure you were gonna do it, but like that's fucking dope that you said you did what you said you were gonna do.
No doubt. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, there's only two people that have done it. So like you and Devin can both speak on it confidently because you've completed it. But from an outsider looking in, like it's a challenge that it honestly doesn't make a ton of sense. And it's like, man, like how would you even first off, why would you put your body through that? And two, mentally, how could you even fathom making like crawling that distance on something that a human's obviously not normally going to do? So yeah, I could see how that, people could look at that and be like, what is this guy doing? And but the fact that you stayed confident and then honestly just block that out, like I think that's pretty admirable. Obviously, completing it and achieving it is incredible, but just your pursuit to change your life and to attack something tough is, I think, what a lot of people can gravitate towards and kind of resonate with.
Yeah. Um, it was one of those things where one of the biggest things I got during training was just like, why the hell would you want to do this? And I would tell people, I'm like, look, it's not about, it's a bear crawl is weird. Like bear crawling 31 miles is weird. Like not many people are just going to want to go out and do that. The fact that I'm just the person that wanted to do it. I don't know why I wanted to do it. I fell in love with it and I just rode with it. But that goes to show you that it's like, if you don't have that thing in your life that like you're thinking about in the shower, when you go to bed, when you wake
Mm.
up, like it got even to the point where I would be during training, I would be like, if I let this person into my life and I have a conversation with them, is it going to affect the outcome of the thing that I really want? And it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter how crazy that thing is. You need to have that one thing. And if you don't have that one thing in your life right now, that you're not questioning every single decision you make, if it's either going to sacrifice or help you get to what you want to do, then it's not worth it. You shouldn't be doing it, you know, or you shouldn't expect an extraordinary result. You know, you could still do things that you don't really aren't fully invested in, but don't expect a great result out of it. And that's what I told people. I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't I do it? What's the worst that happens? I bear crawl 20 miles and I stop. Who can say anything to me at that point? Nobody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So just go out and do what you want to do. And if you don't have that thing that you're thinking about 24/7, maybe you should question your commitment to it.
That's so good, dude. And I love that you said that because honestly, you completed the challenge. And now you can speak to this with another level of confidence. Not only did you try, but you completed it, which is amazing. But I think a lot of people are negative and they put a lot of doubt on people who are trying. Like, dude, if you're trying to do something in life, whether it's bear crawl, ultra marathon, or just trying to post content that's helping people, or just going out of your way to get in that, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you're trying to do something positive in this world, people you should never bring someone down for doing that, even if it sounds crazy. If the intention and the heart behind it is to one, just better yourself and the people around you, that should be encouraged. And I feel like in our culture sometimes we don't always see it that way. So what you did is, dude, is amazing, because hopefully a lot of other people see that and are like, I just want to try something. And that's what's important. Failing is not that bad as long as you continue to push forward and keep trying and keep pushing, because eventually you will learn and you'll get it.
Yeah, that was one of the main things I tried to communicate during my training, was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. And I'm falling in love with the fact that I'm never going to know that I'm able to do this. Like, I'm never going to be able to go out and bear crawl 31 miles before I actually just go out and do it. Like, everyone's watching. So you have to fall in love with uncertainty. And I tell people that all the time, like, you can think all you want, like it's about like achieving these goals. Like, what I take most from this experience was that I went out there every day and I was like, I need to find a way to move forward, because it scares me that I might not get this done. Like, being that vulnerable. And people never want to get to that point. And I was having a conversation with a kid last night, and he was just like, how did you get through it? And I was just like, most people never let themselves get to the point that I was at, where I felt so swarmed and smothered by insignificance that, one, my ego went out the door, but two, I had to let myself feel every single positive, negative emotion, because I wanted to take in as much feedback as possible to just move forward. And people don't want to get to that point. They don't want to, maybe miss a workout, or, let themselves get into a dark place in order to use that energy to move forward. And the only way you could do that is by, being super vulnerable, whichever way that is, right? Like posting content and all that stuff. So, or signing up for a task that you don't think you complete, which is why I don't think most people are very supportive of people who are trying to do these things, because not because they don't agree with it. I just don't think they even understand it. It's a completely different mindset to say, like, I am going to play myself so big and I don't believe in myself at all, in the hopes that I figure it out. Like, it's a sick, weird mindset, but that's the only way in my eyes you can actually achieve something crazy.
I agree. And I like what you said too about, there were maybe times where you were a little bit driven by fear. Like, no, like, man, if I don't complete this, like maybe that drove you a little bit. And I think that's another thing that we could talk about, is there's a lot of people out there that are scared of failure and scared of fear and just scared of the unknown. I think as humans, and I'm guilty of this 100%. Like, I want to know exactly what's going to happen. I want to understand how it's going to play out, what it's going to look like. Those are things that a lot of people like, because it's comfortable and it's not scary. But I
Yeah.
think there is a power in like embracing fear. And I don't think fear is a bad thing. Again, I think that's another thing that sometimes gets a negative perception in our society. But like, when you embrace fear head on, you're going to learn a lot, and you're not going to know what you're going to learn. And that's the scary part I think people have. But like for you, for example, like you went into this thing and said, I don't really know how this is going to work. Even from a training perspective, like I'm sure, and I'll ask you about this in a second, but like from a programming, like you probably didn't have a guide, like you're like just figuring this out. But so I'm sure there was this fear associated with that, but you meeting it head on, I think that's where there's power in just growth and understanding, like you're going to figure it out and you're going to learn so much about yourself in those moments of fear.
100%. And like you said, fear gets a bad rap, but it's just like, if you're not scared of what you're signing up for, like, let me put it this way, like, you want to achieve this thing for a reason, right? You want to achieve it because it's either going to enhance your life, or it's going to it's going to improve status, whatever the reason is. It's what you want to achieve. What do you expect? What do you expect? Do you expect it to just be easy and fun and everything's going to be fine and dandy? Like, you want that thing for a reason, and you want it because you're not sure if you're going to get it. That's what makes it worthwhile. So what emotion do you expect to come out, right? Like, that's what I learned. It was like, I'm supposed to be feeling this. Like, this is great, because now I know, like, what if this thing does happen? I can't imagine how it's going to feel when I get there. And like, you're on the right track, where most people try and stay away from it. It's like, all right, you're setting goals. That's great, but it's like, if your goal doesn't scare you, it's like, are you really going to be that happy with that outcome? Probably not, because you're not forced in that position of just like, I need to get this done. Like, I need to do it. And then when you get it, it's sunshine and rainbows.
That's good. That's true, bro. And honestly, like for anyone listening, like this is not, and I know this is probably not your position either, but we're not going out and saying, hey, go bear crawl 31 miles.
No.
That's not the message here. But it's like, take whatever step that looks like for you specifically. Everyone's so different, and whatever your life is, like, but take that step to get uncomfortable, to embrace the fear. And if that's, some people are scared to go run a mile, you know, and that's okay. And that's okay. But what's not okay is not embracing it and being like pulled away or led by fear, where fear is just dictating and like running your life. That's the problem. So it really doesn't matter what you're pursuing or what you're going after. It's that you continue to grow and continue to push yourself to get better. And that's really the message.
100%. And like, I like to speak on it, and I like to use myself an example of like, everybody sees me, right? Like, I bear crawled 31 miles. Oh, you must be so mentally strong. Like, you could do all of these things. And it's like, sometimes I don't even like to have a phone call with somebody. Like, the simplest thing for somebody else is very difficult for me. And a lot of that is communicating. Like, I'm really an introvert at heart. It takes a while for me to get comfortable with people and like actually be myself. And it took me a while to do that on social media too, where it was like, consistently posting and stuff, because I felt like, oh, what is somebody from high school going to say, all this stuff. And it's just like, it's not black and white, right? Like, everybody's so different. It's finding that thing for you. And it's like, right, you can look at somebody, and I think on social media now it's worse because everybody puts their best foot forward, but it's like, you don't see me, you know, I have to make a phone call with somebody, and my heart's racing, and all of a sudden, like, that requires the same amount of energy as bear crawling 31 miles, right? Maybe crawling 31 miles was a little bit easier in the lead up, So like you said, it's what, and it doesn't have to be just in one area of your life. Like, it's physical, mentally, spiritually, like professionally, even like wherever you could just move that needle forward just a little bit. Something that makes you squirm is what you should do. It doesn't matter what that thing is, how small it is, big it is in your eyes. It's subjective.
It's true. That's 100% true. When you set out to do this thing, were there any points in time where you're like, man, like in the training is what I'm talking about, where you're like, man, I made a mistake. Like, I don't know if I should have committed to this. I don't know if this was the right, decision for myself. Like, were there any moments like that you were just like, dude, I don't know what I just did?
Yeah. There definitely was. And there was even moments during the actual event where it happened. Um, the whole thing, the one point I vividly remember going back to multiple times was, it was the first time I ever decided to bear crawl 5 miles. So it was about like 2 months into my training, and I did it on a treadmill. It was cold outside. I live in New York, so it was I think it was like December or January. Um, and I did 3.5 hours on a treadmill. And 15, I didn't feel good that day. Had a really bad day mentally. Just kind of was like, I'm gonna go outside. The field was taken, so I went inside and like just wasn't prepared. Didn't have food. Didn't have anything. And I got on the treadmill within 15 minutes, and I was like, oh my God, like, I just don't have it today. Like, everything hurt. I was just like constantly just checking the clock, like, how far was that? How long has it been? And I suffered through that for 3.5 hours. I cried like twice. And I was just like, oh shit. Like, if I can't even do 5, like, how the hell am I going to do 31? Um, and that pretty much happened every time I went out to do a long crawl. Like, it was always just anxiety of just like, I don't feel good at mile 7. How the hell am I going to do 31? I don't feel good at 10. How am I going to do 31? Because the furthest I ever crawled was 15 miles. So even when I crawled 15 miles, I was like, I don't know if I can go 15 more. Like, I don't know if I could double that. Um, but there was plenty of times where, I would go to bed at night and I'd just be like, I'm going to look like such an idiot. Like, I'm going to go out there and, God willing, everybody, people see it, we raise a lot of money, and I fail. Like, I very much so might fail. Um, Almost every day I had a little moment in time where I was just like, I'm not ready at all.
How did you get past that? Like, mentally, like, what did you use, or what kind of framework did you model to be like, I don't care what thoughts come into my mind, no matter if it's physical, if it's mental. How did you kind of push past that to keep going forward?
I did it in a very unique way. And a lot of my training didn't make sense. I'm a big believer in like the mental side of things way more than the physical. I think we all try and reach for like, what exercise split should we be doing, or, what heart rate zone should we be running in, and all of this stuff, which is great. But like, the way I treated it as was just like, all right, what concerns me the most? Like, if I would go, sometimes I would go to bed And I would just be like, I don't know if I could, I don't think I could bear crawl 10 miles in 6 hours, like 6, 7 hours. And I'd be like, all right, that's what we're doing tomorrow. Like, we're just going to do it. I'd watch the whole day, just go out and do it. And I tried to crush every single doubt I had of just like, how fast can I do a mile? Like maybe if I'm on mile 10 and I'm an hour behind and I need to do a 30-minute mile, can I crank that out? And I would do, a full workout in between miles and then just try and do a mile fatigue. Like any doubt I had, I just tried to crush it. Um, and on top of that, it was just like the people I knew that would, it's going to sound counterproductive, but like the people I knew that would tell me what I wanted to hear, I kind of leaned on because I knew the day was going to come. Um, so I would always reach out to people and just be like, I would be open and honest with them. I had a coach the whole time, through the whole process, like a mindset coach. And we would just go back and forth of like, I would tell literally my darkest, deepest secrets, my insecurities, and we would just squash it.
I love that. I love that. I think that, I do this sometimes is like if I'm going through something tough or something's, bothering me, a lot of times I'll suppress it and I won't like necessarily address it or come to, to terms with it. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people can make. I think having these feelings are human. Like having days where you're like, dude, I don't know if I can do this, or like I don't even know how I'm gonna get past this situation I'm in or the storm that I'm kind of enduring through. But like I think bringing those to surface and then obviously having someone in your corner, whether it be a coach, a family member, a friend that you can talk to about it, I think is really powerful. How big was community? Obviously, I know kind of when you first started the journey, you said that transition from maybe your old friends to what you were currently experiencing was tough at first. But I know throughout the journey, I'm sure support picked up people, especially in your tighter circle, and then obviously even into the challenge. I know you've had a really strong support system. How much did that kind of play into the success of the challenge?
You know what? It took a while for people to really understand, even the people that were closest to me, what like why I was actually doing it, what was going on. So in the beginning and like the first probably 6, 8 months of training, it was kind of just me. And I was kind of just fighting the dream by myself, but it was fine. It was like the honeymoon phase where I was like still, even it was really difficult, I was still in love with it. Now, the last, I would say, 2 months of training, like I left to open a business, to build a gym in April or April, May. Um, I ended up closing that business in the middle of July, like didn't even last like 2 months, because it was just so much to balance. I knew I couldn't, 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door wasn't going to work. People just weren't as people I was coaching weren't as committed to their goals as I was. And I was just like, I just can't be in this environment. People are wasting my time. Um, and dealing with that and then feeling the event countdown get less than 100 days away, I really started to get anxious and like put myself in a dark place where I was just like, I've only done, 15 miles. Like, I don't know. And, is my training consistently enough? Like, so those last 3 months is when support really kind of I was really leaning on people. I was talking to people daily, whether it was my buddy Dom or my coach Joe, my family members, even a couple of close friends like local to here, where my buddy, I have a videographer. He would come down and spend 3, 4 days with me at a time and just live with me, really. And then even through the event, I would not have been able to do it if I didn't have my team around me. At least in the fashion that I did it, where I set both records. So they were crucial. The support was crucial in the last 3 months. Um, it was I was bear crawling for like 6, 10 hours a day. It was miserable.
Hmm, that's insane, dude. That is actually crazy. And remind me again, what was the cause that you raised money for this event as well, right?
Yeah, so I raised money for the Hidden Opponent. They're a new nonprofit which focuses on student athlete mental health.
And what was kind of the main factor of you choosing that particular charity?
So my background, playing baseball and kind of not having a great college experience and kind of struggling with mental health, and then kind of turning it around and then, being the person that was going to go out and do something that's never been done before, um, was kind of a great story where I wanted to just show people that like, this is where I started exactly. This is where I finished exactly. And like, like we talked about before, it doesn't matter what steps you take. Do the thing that scares you. Do the thing that you don't think you're capable of doing, and like you'd be very surprised of what you could achieve. And I think athletes struggle with that the most, where it's like we live such a life of, especially in college, right? Like everybody knows you're an athlete. Like you have that kind of persona to you, and you're always busy and you're doing all this stuff. And then like once that's gone, it's like who the hell am I? Like I don't have that cool factor to me anymore. I'm just gonna get a desk job and like just be some random dude. Like athletes struggle with that the most, right? Because like we almost live like two totally different lifestyles once in our sport, and then once it ends. So I kind of wanted to just touch light on that subject.
That's awesome, dude. And I agree. I mean, I played college basketball, and even as an athlete, like you hit it on the head. Like I think the transition from playing college sports to the real world is tough,
Yeah.
especially for a lot. I mean, even a lot of the guys that I played with in college wanted to go pro. Some had an opportunity to play professionally, and some didn't. But a lot of us have that mindset of we're going to the NBA or we're going overseas.
Yep.
But even before that, even in your college years, I think there's a lot of things that go unsaid about the pressures and just everything that's on our plate. We're still developing and trying to figure out who we are. And we're playing this sport, which has been honestly a big part of our lives to get to that point to play in college. And then now you're having to deal with school, like the classwork, the social element, like the time management, the ways, like there's so much going on mentally. And I think a lot of people don't address it again. But it's cool that you raise money and just shed light on such an important, cause, because a lot of people go through that and a lot of people aren't willing to really talk much about it.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's definitely near and dear to my heart, but I also wanted to, obviously doing this is not the last thing I'm going to do. So part of my process in picking a charity was just like, I want to get involved with really great people who really believe in what they do and like are willing to be open with communicating with me, like, hey guys, I have this really great idea. Can we do this? Like I want to be a part of something. Um, I don't want to be just some guy that's going to go out and write you a check at the end of every year and say like, okay, I raised all this money. You don't even know what I did really. Like you didn't care. You didn't share any of my stuff. You didn't try and collective effort, like make the biggest impact possible. But here's the money, I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is like people who really want to change the world, as crazy as it sounds, and make waves and want to do it and build relationships through that. And they were the perfect example. Like I found them and literally within 30 minutes of finding them had someone on the phone. And I was like, I don't even care like what you guys do. Like, let's just do it, you
Yeah,
know? So that was kind of another thing as well. So shout out to them for being so open to that.
I love that, dude. One other thing I want to talk to you about, and I'm curious to see how you kind of describe this feeling, but you go through this challenge, you complete it. Obviously, I think it's safe to say when as human beings, when we do hard things that maybe scare us or like you said are pretty big in our eyes and we complete them, there's a lot of confidence that comes with that because it's
Mhm.
like, man, I'm setting out to do something that I fully don't know if I can do. I believe I can, but I don't know for a fact I can do it because I haven't done it yet. And then you go out and accomplish it, you strategize, you execute, you figure it out, and you do it. What kind of confidence did this challenge kind of bring to you moving forward, not only physically and mentally, but just about life in general and about things that you could attain?
I have like an unwavering confidence in my ability to do something. I just now know that it has to be the right thing. So I know the feeling now of just like everything I went through during training, right? Like you take the whole process of feeling super small, strategizing, but that you're just scratching tooth and nail to figure it out. I know if I get to that point, I'm going to do it. Like no matter what, I'll figure it out. It might not look pretty. Um, so I know right now for a fact anything, any idea that I have, it's not a matter of can I do it? It's if I want to do it. Anything I want to do, I will do. And anything I don't do, I now know it's because I didn't want to do it. So it's kind of a catch 22 where it's like I'm fully responsible for everything, but like I'm kind of going to forgive myself if I don't achieve something because I know, all right, you did this. And if you didn't do that, it was totally because you didn't want to. Like, don't lie to yourself, So it gives me that sort of confidence where it's like even failure now, it's just like it wasn't because of the things I did. Like I know I could have done that. I just probably now need to look back and just be like, why didn't you achieve that? And it's because you weren't into it. You didn't want to do it. And that's totally fine. So now I'm just gonna go find whatever else I want to do, and I'll do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure you're already getting this question. when you do things like you just did, people now have this whole idea that you need to do a ton more. Like I'm sure it kind of comes with the territory of putting yourself out there in that way. But do you have more on the to-do list? Like, are there things that you definitely want to accomplish or that you're able to talk about?
For sure. Yeah, I'm an open book. And it's interesting because like I met Dev, the guy who bear called the marathon for everyone that's listening. And that's kind of one thing I asked him. I was just like, dude, like everyone's asking me what's next. Like, I don't even know like what I want to do, man. Like, I don't even know. My brand was just posting about a bear crawl for a year and a half. Like, I'm just a bear crawl guy, right? Like, I want to have my own brand. You know, I want to build businesses and I want to do all this stuff. But like, kind of how do I navigate those waters and how do I kind of just, do other things that aren't physical feats, Well, he kind of gave me great advice and he was just like, you don't have to rush into it. He was rushing into climbing the highest peak on every continent. And he was just like, this is going to fly me by and I'm never going to, if I keep doing this, like I'm not going to enjoy it. But anyways, to answer your question. So I have two things, that I want to do. One is just going to require a lot of, money and, coordination. So I don't know when it will be done. I can't really put a time on it. But that's going to be run an ultra on every continent. So I think it'll be 31. I don't really know the distances of what they do, but there's something called the World Marathon Club where you run a marathon on every continent. I would like to do an ultra. It's a shorter list. I think it's only 4 people, so I'd be the fifth. And then during training, I used to watch the Iron Cowboy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I'm not going for the 100 triathlons in a row. I think I'm probably just going to do a week straight, maybe next spring or the following spring. So those are the two things that I really want to tackle. It's just a matter of when at this point.
I love it, dude. I love
Yeah.
it. I love the mindset behind it all more than anything else. Is just the constant pursuit of just trying to be excellent and push yourself and to help others along the way. So, bro, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I'm really glad we got to chop it up and talk about some really important stuff. And you've got I've got your back 100%. Our whole AIM community is behind you, bro. And just keep being a light and keep helping people, bro.
I appreciate that, man. Likewise, I'm here for you as well. Let's definitely stay connected. Maybe we could do some cool stuff in the future.
Let's do it, bro. Thank you so much, man.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.